Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and we've made it to the final Theros Beyond Death preview recap for January 9th, 2019, and we've got a few cards to get through, and then tomorrow morning you can expect the white set review here on the channel, so make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribed, etc. But let's get started. Up first is Helios Intervention, the last intervention. Helios Intervention is X white white for an instant at rare. Choose one, destroy X target artifacts or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. Yay. In limited, of course, this is going to be potentially decent with the very real possibility of enchantment creatures, although I went and did a check and there's only 6 of them at common so far revealed, and we don't have too many more cards to go, so I almost wonder if we might be overestimating how many enchantment creatures are going to be running around. There's probably just enough. There are 13 at uncommon, so it's not like you're not main decking this, especially with the auras and the just regular enchantments and etc. Plus artifacts. There's not too many of those either, though. So it's still main deckable, but I would caution against super assuming that there are always going to be enchantment creatures running around. Similarly, be careful about devotion. There's very little devotion in this set. There's none at common that I've seen so far, or perhaps 1 card at common. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Anyways, this is totally main deckable because, of course, you're probably going to kill at least one thing. You may even kill multiple things. It's not out of the realm of possibility, though, that you should side this out in some matchups. You may come up against somebody who just doesn't have good enough targets for this card, because the alternative of just gaining some life is not worth a damn in limited. So be careful with this in limited. Outside of limited, I don't think I see a big play for this, perhaps in Brawl or Commander, but in more competitive formats, there's better removal, right? Up next is Helios Punishment. Helios Punishment is 1 and a white for an enchantment aura at uncommon enchant creature. Helios Punishment enters the battlefield with 4 task counters on it. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. It loses all abilities and has tap. Remove a task counter from it. Then, if it has no task counters left on it, destroy Helios Punishment. So it's a rest, kind of, but 3 turns later, probably 3 turns, because your opponent will immediately tap the creature to get a counter off of it, unless it's already tapped, in which case 4 turns. It's going to be unarrested. That's probably fine in limited. Limited doesn't go super long. It's typically not a turn 20 format or anything like this. So as long as you don't play this on turn 2 or 3 or 4, it's probably going to be there till the end of the game. But it is, of course, worse than arrest. So, you know, it's going to be underrated by some people. It's going to be maybe a little bit overrated by some people. And I think the realistic part is going to be in the middle. Outside of limited, I don't know if I see this getting much play. There's just better options out there for now. Up next is Relentless Pursuit. Relentless Pursuit is 2 and a green for a sorcery at common. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a creature card and or land card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. No. 3 mana, I'm not a big fan of this effect in limited, really. I prefer this to be like 1 mana for Adventurous Impulse. Now, this can give you a creature and a land, but of course, there's the possibility of whiffing on that. There's the possibility of not finding a creature, which would be a worse whiff than just finding a land. So yeah, the fact that this is random off the top of the deck makes me not super into this, and then the fact that it's 3 mana makes me super not into this for limited. So to limited, and beyond limited, there's just infinitely more efficient cards than this. Up next is Entrancing Liar. Entrancing Liar is 3 generic mana for an artifact at uncommon. You may choose not to untap Entrancing Liar during your untap step. Pay X, tap it. Tap target creature with power X or less. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as Entrancing Liar remains tapped. This seems really decent for limited. 3 generic mana. And then I just have to put in, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana into this, and then my opponent's creature is just tapped forever, or until it doesn't matter and there's something else that I need to tap down. Really cool card, going to be great in limited. Artifact hate is going to be a little tiny bit more prevalent, but that doesn't mean that you don't play this card. You still play this card. You're going to be trying to be way too cute if you don't. Outside of limited, probably a little bit too much mana to justify this sort of semi-removal. We have much more efficient removal than this in constructed format, so I don't see it seeing any play outside of limited, but in limited, cool. Up next is Shatter the Sky. Shatter the Sky is 2 white white for a sorcery at uncommon. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures. It's a 4-mana board wipe that we haven't seen those for a while. We saw Kaya's Wrath, which was white, white, black, black, but that was a very specific casting cost. We haven't seen a mono-colored 4-mana board wipe in a long time, and this one's pretty darn good. I guess in Constructed, if you're a very controlling deck, you're probably not going to get to draw a card, and your opponent might be able to, which is a slight downside, but you've got a 4-mana Wrath. Deal with it. In Limited, of course, it's going to be totally fine. 4-mana Wraths are decent because you don't have to wait forever to pop it off, which means you don't have to wait and sandbag back creatures and die with your Wrath in hand. So yeah, this card just seems great for a number of different reasons. Next up is Return to Nature. I feel kind of betrayed. I got to preview this when it was first printed, and I haven't gotten to preview it since. This should just be my preview card every set. Return to Nature is 1 and a green for an instant at common. Choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. In this set, this is probably going to be main deckable for enchantments and enchantment creatures and auras and etc. The occasional artifact maybe. And the exile target card from a graveyard is more relevant than it's ever been. So yeah, this is probably just a main deckable card in this format, much more so than we've seen in any previous format with it. Outside of Limited, we already have it. We know what it is. Up next is Unknown Shores. Unknown Shores is a land at common, tap to add a colorless, or pay 1 to tap it to add 1 mana of any color. This is awful fixing for Limited. People play it. They generally shouldn't. If you are desperate for fixing, I guess, but this should not be the thing that you pick up going, aha, now I can play 3 colors, or even aha, now I can splash. It's a bad way of splashing because this costs 2 mana. You pay 1, but you also tap this land, so you are paying 2 mana for that 1 mana. Outside of Limited, this is a reprint. We know the card. It'll do what it does. Up next is Thrill of Possibility. Thrill of Possibility is 1 and a red for an instant at common. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards. We just had this in Eldraine. It's probably going to be okay here. It's going to be, something that you probably want to play in that blue-red, play a card up, play your first spell on your opponent's turn deck. There needs to be a better archetype name for that deck. But yeah, it's an okay card. It's fine. It was probably better in Eldraine, where it was making you a fairy and making you a rat and doing all kinds of other things in the Draw 2 deck. But yeah, it's fine. And we already have it for non-limited, so we know what it does. Up next is Wolf Willow Haven. Wolf Willow Haven is 1 and a green for an enchantment aura at uncommon. Enchant land whenever enchanted land is tapped for a mana. Its controller adds an additional green. Pay 4 and a green, sacrifice it. Create a 2/2 green wolf creature token, but activate this ability only during your turn. Not at sorcery speed, but only during your turn. This is probably fine for Limited. 1 and a green to ramp you, and it's a little bit more stable than a Mana Dork is, but of course there is enchantment hate running around, but if your opponent uses their enchantment hate on your ramp land aura, whatever. Yeah, just a fine card for Limited, and of course later when you don't need that ramp, sack it, get a wolf. Cool. Might not be too impactful at the time, but it's a cute little bonus. In Standard, I don't see it seeing any play, really. There's infinitely better ways to ramp as long as Nissa exists and Paradise Druid and etc. And Brawl, sure, maybe. Commander, there's way better stuff in Commander. Putting this up against like a Gaia's Cradle or something, there's better ways to ramp. Up next is Nessie Wanderer. Nessie Wanderer is 1 and a green for a creature Satyr Scout and a 1/3 at uncommon. Constellation, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It's a 1/3 for 2, which is an okay stat line for Limited, and the ability is cute. It's going to be less useful as a way of fixing and ramping later in the game, but it's also going to be thinning your deck, which people do overestimate the impact of. It is like 1% or even a fraction of a percent that it helps you out, but it does help you out, and you still get a 1/3 that hopefully can block some of that early aggro. So it seems like a totally fine card for Limited. Outside of Limited, not really. Maybe in Brawl or Commander, the usual refrain of maybe in Brawl and Commander. Up next is Slaughter Priest of Mogis, our first mention of Mogis. Slaughter Priest of Mogis is black-red for a creature Minotaur Shaman. Each time you sacrifice a permanent, Slaughter Priest of Mogis gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Pay 2, sacrifice a creature or enchantment. Slaughter Priest of Mogis gets first strike until end of turn. So it's a 2/2 for 2. That's okay in Limited, and it can pay 2 and sack something to give itself first strike plus +2/+0. Seems like a totally fine card for Limited. Outside of Limited, perhaps in Brawl. I don't think this makes the Sacrifice deck in Standard, because this isn't dealing direct damage. This still has to be able to attack and get through, or else you sacked something for no real reason. Maybe you killed a creature or something. But yeah, this does not compare to Mayhem Devil or anything like that. So I don't know that this will actually get any play in Standard. Beyond Standard, non-singleton formats, I doubt we'll see any play of it. But, Brawl and Commander for every card. Up next is Thaumaturge of Many Faces. Thaumaturge of Many Faces is 1 and a blue for a creature human wizard. It's a 1/1, but Constellation, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it become a copy of target creature and gain this ability. So this seems pretty nice. It's a May ability, which means you don't have to change it once it's changed. Once it's a 7/7 and you play an enchantment, you don't have to change it to anything else. I guess even if you did, you could just change it to the 7/7 if it still existed. But yeah, this is an okay card. It's one of those cards, though, like clones, where it depends entirely on how good your deck is and how good your opponent's deck is. You may have matchups where, the best card you see is a 3/3. And if this becomes a 3/3, it's the best card on the battlefield, so it's still fine. You're not playing this. But, don't get too pie in the sky playing this thinking, aha, it's always going to be a 6/6 flying trample, because it's not. Temper your expectations a little. In Standard, I don't really see any play for this because it's so random whether or not you're going to have anything to copy off of your opponent's battlefield. And for your own battlefield, you're not playing singleton, you're not playing limited. Put the good cards in your deck. So I don't see play in competitive non-singleton formats. Brawl, I think there's going to be decks that love this card. There's definitely going to be enchantment Brawl decks going forward after Theros Beyond Death. And Commander, of course, people will find places for this. It's a cool card. I like it. I think it's totally fine and limited. I think people will overrate it too heavily. Up next is Mischievous Chimera. Mischievous Chimera is blue-red for a creature Chimera at uncommon. It's a 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, Mischievous Chimera deals 1 damage to each opponent. Scry 1. Here's the uncommon signpost payoff for this blue-red deck. And it deals a damage to the opponent. Woo! Also, it scries 1, I guess. This doesn't make me terribly excited for the play a spell on your opponent's turn deck. The payoffs are all weak. Get a counter. Get +1/+1 till end of turn. Deal a damage, but only to the opponent. You can't even ping an X1 if you really wanted to. I don't know. Maybe the entire set will be powered down, and so this will actually be relatively powerful and limited. It's totally fine and limited. If I'm blue-red, I'm playing this card. It's going to be the point of my deck. I'm just wondering if that deck is going to be powerful enough. I don't think we've seen powerful enough payoffs, but of course I'm going to have to play with the format. Outside of limited, I don't imagine this gets much play. A 2/2 flyer for 2 is nice, but 1 damage once a turn is just not really enough, even with that scry 1. So yeah, I don't know if it'll see any play outside of limited. Some people might try, but man, I was hoping for a much better payoff for the signpost uncommon. Up next is Hero of the Games. Hero of the Games is a 2 and a red creature human soldier. It's a 3/2 at common. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of the Games, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. It's the heroic mechanic for this set. Whenever you target it, give +1/+0. We've seen that on a bunch of different cards. It's a 3/2 for 3. Those are okay stats. And if we do target this with something, getting to half of a Trumpet Blaster team is okay. I have a prediction that this draft format might be a little bit speedy, and it might be because of cards like this. It's not necessarily great. It's just properly costed and aggressive. And of course, it's not going to see any play outside of limited. Our second last card for today is Acolyte of Affliction. Acolyte of Affliction is 2 black-green for a creature human cleric. It's a 2/3 at uncommon. When Acolyte of Affliction enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. You may then choose a permanent card from your graveyard and put it into your hand. A 2/3 for 4 that mills me 2 and I get to draw a card from my graveyard. My choice. Love it. I don't get removal, unless it's an aura, I suppose, but I get a land, I get a creature, I get an aura, I get an enchantment, I get whatever. That's really cool. This card seems great. People who haven't played with things like Nullhide Baloth, I'm gonna say was the card, or even Golgari Findbroker might underrate this card a little bit. This card's actually gonna be really good, and I think black-green especially is gonna love it if they're milling themselves a little bit. So this card seems really good for limited. Outside of limited, could see some play. It depends on how well Golgari shapes up in Standard. You know, Golgari Finebroker saw play in Limited back when Golgari was a big thing, and I guess it's actually still Standard legal, and probably is just better being a 3-4 for 4 instead of a 2-3 for 4. But yeah, maybe you want 8 copies of it, who knows. Our final card for today is Dream Trawler. Dream Trawler is 2 white, white, blue, blue for a 3/5 creature Sphinx at rare. It's a flying lifelinker. Whenever you draw a card, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever it attacks, you draw a card. Discard a card. Dream Trawler gains hexproof until end of turn and tap it. This is a very good card. Obviously, in Limited, you must be white-blue. You're not splashing this card, but you must be white-blue to play it. But it's going to be a card that ends the game. A 4/5 attacking lifelinker is great. The fact that at instant speed you discard a card and save it from almost all styles of removal, I guess just not from combat, is great. This card's going to be a finisher in Limited. It's going to be a finisher in Constructed. If Azorius control comes back, this card is going to be the way you die. So huge Standard playability here. Pioneer, probably not. I feel like all the good control finishers are in Pioneer already, and I don't know that this is better than Pearl Lake Ancient or Netzahal or Aetherling or etc. But for Standard, this is definitely going to see play, and in Limited, it's going to be a very good card as well. So that's going to wrap it up for today, our final video. We made it through. I got done all these videos. They were a bit of a slog near the end, getting these out every single night, but tomorrow, the true slog begins with the set review. Tomorrow morning, around probably afternoon, around 12 or 1, you're going to see the white set review here on the channel, so make sure you're following for that. Tomorrow night, you'll see blue, and then you'll see black, red, green, multicolored artifacts and lands over the next several days. On Wednesday, make sure that you check out twitch.tv/TheManaLeak. I will be playing in the streamer early access event for Theros Beyond Death. Wizards of the Coast has given me a fully stocked account on Arena, so I will be playing a whole bunch of sealed over there. I will not be playing the draft. I will just be playing the sealed. And then, of course, next weekend, I will have my pre-release recaps, my live vlogs from my local game store, and all kinds of other content for Theros Beyond Death. So make sure you're following if you're not. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me over on Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. You can find me at patreon.com/TheManaLeak if you want to help out that way. Patrons are the best. You get access to the patrons-only Discord where we chat about other games and share pictures of our food. You know, the important magic talk. You also work your way towards getting a Mana Leak playmat whenever you hit $60 lifetime, whether that takes you 2 months, 7 months, 27 months, however long it takes you to hit $60, you get a Mana Leak playmat when you hit that point. You also get in the draw for the Pack 1, Pick 1 cards each week. Easiest way, of course, to help out is to like, share, and subscribe. But if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all tomorrow for the set review.